An extraterrestrial spacecraft crashed on Earth, but it turned out that humans had arrived on it. During an astronomy class, the teacher enthusiastically tells the students about the upcoming meteor shower that Earth's inhabitants are about to witness soon. However, the teenagers seem uninterested in the teacher's story and are absorbed in their own concerns. Julia, along with her best friend Svetlana, discusses her new boyfriend, Artem. Despite enjoying her time with the handsome young man, Julia often finds it difficult to come up with conversation topics. The conversation between friends catches the attention of a classmate nicknamed Google. He secretly harbors feelings for Julia and always gives her the right answers during lessons. The teacher warns the students that a meteor shower always foreshadows tragic events. In the distant past, people considered a meteor shower a blessing for the crusade, but ultimately, all crusaders perished in the desert. A student asks if today's meteor shower poses a danger to Earthlings. The teacher uncertainly asserts that meteorite fragments will burn up in the upper layers of the atmosphere. Artem picks up Julia from school, leaving her friend alone. At home, she faces an unpleasant conversation with her father, Colonel Valentin Lebedev. The girl wants to join her friends and go karting to observe the meteor shower, but her father believes that a large gathering of people could be dangerous and prohibits her from leaving the house. Upon learning this, Artem promises to rescue Julia from confinement. Meanwhile, an extraterrestrial spacecraft enters a stream of meteorites, damaging its camouflage. Russian military detects the rapid approach of an unidentified aerial object to the capital. Suspecting a connection to NATO, they decide to take action and send interceptors to shoot it down. Local residents gather in open spaces, including Julia and Artem. A cart rudely enters the scene, almost hitting people. This incident infuriates Artem, and he smashes the side window of the car owner. A conflict seems inevitable, but Artem's close friends, Russ, Yevgeny, and Python, come to his aid. Assessing the uneven odds, the car owner decides not to engage in a fight. Svetlana invites Julia and Artem to the roof of her house, where there is a magnificent view of the meteor shower. However, the lovebirds are too absorbed in each other, and Svetlana generously offers them the keys to her apartment for privacy. During an intimate moment, Julia cannot fully relax because she left her friend alone on the roof. Her concern proves justified. At that moment, fighters shoot down the extraterrestrial spacecraft, and it crashes directly onto the roof where Svetlana is. During the crash, the ship destroys dozens of residential buildings, a highway, and a stadium. Julia and Artem find themselves on the edge of a chasm, clinging to debris from a bed. Fortunately, Artem manages to save Julia and evacuate her from the partially destroyed house. The incident site is sealed off by the military and police. Colonel Lebedev and Parliament Representative Mikhail decide to establish contact with the aliens to understand their intentions. A 2-meter-tall creature resembling a robot emerges from the spacecraft to meet them. Mikhail welcomes it to Earth, but due to high stress, he suffers a heart attack. Later, Lebedev reports to the parliament on the results of negotiations with the representative of the extraterrestrial race. It asks people not to approach the ship and allow them to repair it so they can safely return to their planet. Since the space visitors show no signs of aggression, Lebedev recommends that the authorities not provoke a conflict and take an observational position, awaiting further developments. Julia wakes up in a hospital room. From the news on TV, she learns about the spacecraft crash, causing disaster in the city. A package with Svetlana's headphones catches her eye, showing the date of her friend's death. Overwhelmed by the events, she finds Artem and escapes with him from the hospital. Colonel Lebedev arrives at the hospital in an armored vehicle. Despite his dissatisfaction with his daughter's connection to the modern aggressive youth, he thanks the boy for saving Julia. On the way home, the girl asks her father what awaits them next. Lebedev explains that a curfew has been imposed in the city, and after school, all students must go straight home. However, restrictions for Julia do not end there. Since Lebedev will be constantly busy with his duties and unable to ensure his daughter's safety, he turns to their grandmother to take care of her. As a result, Julia's strained relationship with her father becomes even more tense. Several days later, students are transported to school in military vehicles. Inside the educational institution, a memorial is organized in memory of Svetlana, intensifying Julia's sadness and hatred towards the aliens who took her best friend's life. During the astronomy class, the teacher tries to convince the teenagers to be more tolerant towards the extraterrestrial guests, despite the bitterness of loss. Humanity has a unique opportunity to get acquainted with an alien civilization and ask them important questions about the mysteries of the universe. Julia, harboring negative feelings, perceives the teacher's words negatively and holds the opinion that people should drive the aliens away from their land. At home, the girl hacks into her father's safe and steals a pistol. 1 hour before curfew, she goes to Artem's garage with his friends. The guys are also aggressively inclined towards the aliens who freely roam their land. Julia urges her friends to move from talk to action and reveals the stolen pistol. The group infiltrates an abandoned building, which provides a discreet passage to the restricted area where the spacecraft crashed. Artem instructs Julia to wait for him in an abandoned car, warning about potential dangers ahead. Inside a store, the guys discover a round extraterrestrial artifact on the floor. They conclude that the device fell to Earth when the ship snagged on a house. Meanwhile, Julia, ignoring her boyfriend's instructions, goes up to Svetlana's apartment. There, she sadly looks at their photo together and listens to her friend's last voicemail. Unexpectedly, an alien appears before Julia. Frightened, she instinctively reacts and shoots at it. Recoiling, Julia accidentally falls into the open space, but the alien manages to grab her hand. Instead of letting her fall, he saves her from the fall from the partially destroyed high-rise. In that moment, she notices how the alien's head briefly takes on a human appearance. Artem, along with his friends, rushes to Julia's cries and attacks the alien. Due to the aggressive actions of the guys, the extraterrestrial loses balance and falls, losing its exoskeleton. The group discovers an empty suit with red liquid inside and decides to move it to their garage for further study. Among the dusty debris, Julia notices the body of the injured alien, remarkably resembling an ordinary guy. She decides to keep this a secret and, along with the others, leaves the restricted area. Julia spends a sleepless night contemplating the alien's actions. At dawn, she steals her father's car and returns to the restricted area. The alien, heavily injured, loses consciousness, and Julia has to pull him out of the building on a cart. At school, Julia turns to her classmate Google and asks him to skip classes to help her. Seeing the alien's body in the truck, the guy can't contain his excitement. He informs Julia that the alien's anatomy is very close to human, and to save him, a transfusion of the red liquid is needed. Thanks to her father's connections, Julia obtains a pass to the hospital and discreetly brings the alien to the operating room. With Google's assistance, she performs the transfusion of her red liquid into the alien's body. The extraterrestrial briefly regains consciousness and, in gratitude, awards Julia with an unusual bracelet. The teens bring the alien guest to the garage, where they tie him up. Julia goes home to take a shower and relax. During her bath, she discovers that her new bracelet has the ability to move from hand to hand and allows her to control water. Meanwhile, the military discovers the alien artifact and sends it to the laboratory for research. In his presentation to the parliament members, one of the scientists informs that the alien spacecraft is attracting all the water in the city. He concludes that water is an integral part of the regeneration process of the broken alien transport. The authorities decide to accommodate the aliens by imposing restrictions on the distribution of water among the civilian population. Lebedev appeals to the leadership to return the artifact to its owners but receives a resolute refusal. They intend to use this unknown device to gather more information about the extraterrestrial race. The next day, excited Google informs Julia that the alien has finally come to. The girl instructs the alien, now armed, and demands answers. The extraterrestrial almost instantly switches to Russian and introduces himself as Hakan. He tells the teens that he needs to retrieve a device called Shilk and return to his ship, the Sol. Julia feels awkward during the encounter with the alien and responds to him with rudeness. Hakan says he understands her feelings, as, in her opinion, she saved the life of an enemy. Irritated, Julia orders her new acquaintance to put on her father's old clothes and immediately leave her garage. Hakan silently obeys, but the rules of behavior on the streets of an alien planet are completely incomprehensible to him. His strange appearance attracts the attention of patrol officers, who, mistaking the alien for a drug addict, direct him to the police station. Artem and his friends attempt to dismantle the alien's exoskeleton, but all their tools prove futile against its armor. Wiping the protective suit with a wet cloth, they notice scratches on it instantly disappearing. Eugene puts his hand inside the exoskeleton and discovers that it mimics all his movements. Suddenly, the suit starts enveloping the guy's hand, causing panic. His friends help him get out, but shallow cuts remain on his arm due to their clumsy actions. Frightened, Eugene tells his friends that he no longer wants to resist the aliens and believes that the extraterrestrial race will eventually destroy everyone. Russ kicks him out onto the street. In rage, Eugene yells at his friend that the aliens will deal with him first. Artem decides to get rid of the dangerous suit and arranges a meeting with Colonel Lebedev. With his friends, he arrives at a checkpoint where local residents have been waiting for water distribution for a long time. Tension among the population grows, and an enraged man from the crowd throws a rock at a police officer. Unable to see the attacker's face, the law enforcement officer assumes it was Russ and lunges at him. Python tries to defend his friend but receives a strong blow to the head with a baton. Artem quickly puts his friends in the car and orders them to go to a safe location. Chaos ensues, and local residents intend to break through the police live wall. Artem tries to pull people away from the confrontation, warning of the danger of attacking law enforcement. He wants to help the injured police officer, but in the confusion, other representatives of law enforcement perceive his actions as an attack. They strike the guy with a baton and forcibly drag him to a vehicle for transporting prisoners. Colonel Lebedev arrives at the scene and asks Artem what he wanted to show him. The guy looks at the injured police officer, who decides to cowardly remain silent about Artem trying to save him. Feeling disgust for law enforcement, the guy changes his mind about telling Lebedev about the exoskeleton and allows himself to be arrested. Hakan is taken to the police station, where they unsuccessfully try to take his fingerprints. There, the alien sees a TV report that Shilka is now under the control of the Ministry of Defense. Eventually, Julia calms down and decides to help the extraterrestrial guest. Using her position as the colonel's daughter, she secures his release from custody. At the police station, she encounters Artem and promises that her father will help him get released. In response, the guy speaks unfavorably about Lebedev and says that soon they and their friends will establish their own order in the area. Hakan tells Julia that Shilka is with the military, and without this device, the spaceship cannot make a temporal transition to another dimension. The girl offers her help to the alien so that he can leave Earth as soon as possible. Coming with Hakan to the Ministry of Defense, a guard refuses to let Julia see her father without a valid reason. Glancing at Hakan, the girl quickly invents a plausible reason and claims that she is pregnant. Shocked by his daughter's unexpected admission, Lebedev threatens to send Hakan to serve in another part of the country. Julia asks her father not to be angry and hugs him, skillfully stealing his security pass. The irritated colonel kicks the guy out of the office, and Julia discreetly hands him the pass. Later, she confesses to her father that she played him. The girl, with a sad smirk, says that this is the first time her father has agreed to listen to her in a long time. Lebedev is constantly absorbed in his work and has completely stopped being interested in his daughter's life. She still feels resentment towards her father for sending her to camp when her mother was seriously ill and had little time left. The colonel sought to protect his daughter from pain but did not provide her with the opportunity to say goodbye to her mother. Hakan, wearing a protective suit and using the colonel's pass, infiltrates the laboratory. Placing his hand on the artifact, he extracts a glowing core from it and silently leaves, leaving the lab technicians in amazement. The emergency alarm goes off in the building, and Lebedev evacuates Julia and Hakan from the Ministry of Defense. Artem is released, and he informs his friends that he intends to start fighting the aliens. In the garage, the guys secure a metal grill on the car's windshield, prepare a Molotov cocktail mixture, and load bats into the trunk. Artem calls Julia and apologizes for his recent rudeness. He invites his sweetheart to join them in the garage, but the girl no longer seeks revenge and refuses the meeting. Julia tells Hakan that they won't be able to approach the ship unnoticed before curfew. To pass the time, the girl suggests the extraterrestrial have dinner at her place. In her apartment, they are greeted by an old blind dog named Charlie. Touching the pet, Hakan discovers with horror that he is in pain. Julia confesses that she is not ready to part with Charlie, as her mother gave her this dog. Julia's grandmother enters the room, and Julia briefly steps away to tell her about the strange guy in their house. When she returns, she is surprised to find that Charlie's eyes can see again. Hakan shows her Shilka and explains that this artifact is the source of eternal life. Since Hakan has been in constant contact with this remarkable object, he himself has become immortal. Julia treats the extraterrestrial guest to pancakes and feels warm feelings towards him growing in her heart. At that moment, news footage shows Hakan at the Ministry of Defense's surveillance cameras near the laboratory. Colonel Lebedev unexpectedly bursts into the house, but the young people manage to escape. Meanwhile, Artem assembles a resistance team and spreads propaganda videos on the internet, urging people to unite to resist the aliens. Julia finds the last gift from her friend in her backpack, 2 tickets to the concert of their favorite artist. She decides to go there with Hakan to blend into the crowd and wait for curfew. During the performance, the alien leans against Julia and telepathically transports them to his home planet, where they witness a breathtaking world. He tells the girl that his planet's climate is similar to Earth's, but free from environmental pollution. Its inhabitants are like Earth people but have long found a way to live forever, avoiding suffering. Hakan did not want to attack Earth. He wanted to quietly explore a planet similar to his own before making contact with Earthlings. Caught in a meteor shower, the camouflage of his ship malfunctioned, leading to a military attack on the aircraft. If anyone from the humans tries to board the ship, Saul will destroy them, protecting the technologies of his planet. Eugene, also present at the concert, spots Julia in the crowd and hastily informs Artem that his girlfriend is now with someone else. The artist announces from the stage that curfew has begun, and everyone present needs to leave the venue. Julia leads Hakan to a secluded area and says her goodbyes to him. Unable to restrain their feelings any longer, the couple kisses. At that moment, Artem calls Julia, and she breaks up with him over the phone. Unexpectedly, Artem appears from an alley with his friends and attacks Hakan. He does not resist the guys and silently allows himself to be beaten, as his race does not accept violence. Trying to stop them, Julia explains that they attacked an extraterrestrial who just wants to return to his home planet. The girl admits that she was wrong in her assumptions about aliens and now acknowledges that they surpass humans. After these words, madness flashes in Artem's eyes, and he slaps Julia with all his strength. Seeing this, Hakan violates his principles and single-handedly disperses the attackers. Eugene finds a gun in Julia's backpack and points it at Hakan. In an attempt to protect her beloved, the girl throws herself at the shooter, causing the bullet he fired to hit Russ. Friends rush to the wounded guy, but it's already too late. Julia begs Hakan to save Russ, but Shilk does not have the ability to resurrect the departed. As military vehicles approach, Artem and his friends hurry to a hiding place, while Hakan and Julia are taken into custody. Artem orders Python to send an emergency call to members of the resistance group. For provocation, he intentionally spreads a rumor that the alien attacked a human, taking his life. This message only intensifies the general discontent among the population, which has already arisen due to the losses after the spaceship crash, water supply difficulties, and the authorities' inaction towards residents left homeless. Hundreds of people respond to Artem's call. In a state of shock after losing his friend, he calls on people to revolt against the authorities and attack the aliens. Angry people take up weapons to defend their land from outsiders. Artem himself returns to the garage and puts on the exoskeleton to gain an advantage in battle. Julia and Hakan are held captive in a mobile military checkpoint. Colonel Lebedev arrives there, and his daughter tries to explain to her father that people cannot approach the ship. If this happens, the self-destruct system will activate, destroying an entire city. The insurgents manage to break through the perimeter defense and reach the restricted area. Robots of the alien race emerge from the ship, seeking to protect their technologies. Despite the aggressive attitude of the attackers, they try to minimize human casualties. The military also engages in the battle to prevent an escalation of the conflict. Carefully listening to his daughter's arguments, Lebedev admits that he sincerely wants to help her but is also afraid of losing her in this battle. In an attempt to achieve her goal, Julia points a gun at her temple and, through blackmail, forces her father to give her the keys to the armored vehicle. Together with Hakan, they rush to the spaceship. On their way, the crazed Artem attacks the couple and overturns their transport. Hakan steps outside and engages in a fight with Artem. Artem almost manages to defeat his opponent, but Julia hits him with the armored vehicle. In the end, the rebellion is crushed. Robots almost attack the military, but Lebedev lays down his weapons and raises his hands, signaling the peaceful intentions of his soldiers. Hakan and Julia happily embrace, and the girl confesses her love to the extraterrestrial. Completely losing control, Artem gets out of the exoskeleton and shoots his former girlfriend and Hakan, who tried to shield her with his body. The colonel's greatest fear comes true as he rushes to his lifeless daughter's body. Robots carry Hakan and Julia inside the spaceship and place them in regeneration capsules. The artificial intelligence Saul addresses Lebedev, informing him that his daughter will live, thanks to Hakan. Loving the girl, he sacrificed his immortality for her salvation. Saul reveals that Hakan concealed his expedition to Earth from everyone. Despite nearly ideal climatic conditions, our planet is off limits for open visits due to an extremely aggressive social environment. However, the self-sacrifice of Julia and Hakan has caused the artificial intelligence to reconsider its opinion of Earthlings, and it must now transmit the acquired knowledge to its home planet. Julia regains consciousness and tearfully looks at Hakan's lifeless body. Shilk is returned to its place, and the spaceship departs from Earth, forever changing the lives of the local residents. In Hakan's capsule, the regeneration process is initiated, implying that the extraterrestrial may have survived. At the end of the story, Julia reflects on the fact that an extraterrestrial from another planet was able to believe in humanity more than humans themselves.